Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to this week's episode of Monday Motivation. Monday Motivation has been going for over 3 years now and is a way to motivate your Monday, your morning, or your week. So if you or someone you know is going through a little bit of life stuff and you're not quite sure how to navigate through it, then do share this video with them. So this morning, I don't need this pressure. What is this all about? Well, as per the lives of my clients, as per the lives of my audience, as per the life of me, there are often times where we feel under pressure. And I thought, why don't I share a Monday motivation that can help us move through the pressure? So if you are like the many vibers and those of you who watch this, either live or on the replay, do pop a comment below, do say hi. And if you want to continue the conversation a little bit more privately afterwards, then do go over to the Visibility Vibes tribe, where you can post your thoughts, your comments, your challenges, or anything else to a group of, quite frankly, the best people on the planet. So I just want to acknowledge both Alan and Teresa, who says hi. She says, "Morning, Jenny," with a lovely heart, because she is a lovely hearted woman. So I thought I would share this piece about pressure because for anybody that works in the personal development space, maybe you work as a coach, maybe you help other people get through their own issues and their struggles, there's something that I have noticed, and you likely would have noticed too. And the reason that I share this is because for those of us that do work with people, that do help other people, quite often we're the last people to reach out. Morning, Ivona. We're the last people to reach out, where sometimes, like, how can you ask for something when you're not sure what to ask for, when you're not sure what you need? So I thought I would share this through a quick story, and to illustrate this story, this is part of a notebook that I started in 2008, so it's 11 years old, and because of that, here's the cover. We'll stop at the rest of it. It's literally, I have to bind it together. This has got some, what I would say is personal development gold. Things that I was going through, things that I might have been struggling with, things that I wanted to make changes to, are contained within this book and another volume of this. And it was of interest to me of how it started and what I did on the cover. So if you can see this, what looks like a picture, and I'll bring it closer, but if you can see that dress? It was actually a mind map that I did spontaneously when we were looking at something called the learning question. And the learning question is, what would I do differently next time? Can you see like the L plate? I know this is going to be mirror writing. What would I do differently next time? I learnt this when I was learning neuro-linguistic programming from a gentleman called John Seymour. And what I loved about my journey of NLP is that with John, I actually went through an introduction, and then I decided to go through and learn at practitioner level, at master practitioner level, and I'm actually qualified to train NLP, although I don't. And he used to run his classes rather than doing it in days or weeks, as some people do. Or I've heard that you can do NLP online in 4 days and become a practitioner that way. Please tell me that's not true. Yes, you remember seeing this notebook before. Please tell me that that's not true, because here's what I loved about the way that I learned NLP, and each their own and everything's different. We actually did it almost like academic season, so we'd start in September and we'd finish in June, which meant we had a whole year for the practitioner, master practitioner. We'd come together at weekends, we'd go through assessments, and what I loved about this was the things that I learned and things that I found a little bit kind of hard to swallow or I couldn't get my head around, I was able actually to take into life. And at that time, I was working corporately. This was before I started my own business. So I was working corporately. So even the most sort of cynical, skeptical part of me could go away and apply what I was learning to real life situations, find out what worked, what didn't work, what I did well, what I didn't do so well, what I needed to polish up on, what I needed to practice on. And very early on, I actually had the privilege of training or doing an introduction to NLP training within a corporate company. Now, I'm not going to say which company or anything else like that, but if you're watching this and you were there, you will remember. So John actually came in and delivered an introduction to NLP, and I got to assist, even though I was still going through my own NLP training. And this was so insightful because so many people will apply what they're learning in a personal development space, either to their business or to themselves, normally on a career path, because we spend so much time at work. And one of the questions we were asked on this learning question, what would I do differently next time, evoked in me some memories of when I was a small child. Now, I'd like to just take you back with me to when I was 7. Now, dare I say this, we're going back 4 decades, okay? I was 7 years old. Me, my mum and my sister had the trip of a lifetime, at least it felt like to me, to Barbados. We went 4 days after Christmas and we stayed there for 5 weeks. 5 weeks. And while we were there, my sister was about to have her 6th birthday. So my aunt made a birthday cake for her and we had a party. But I didn't know what to expect. I just thought it was going to be a party. All the kids that we'd got to meet and play with over the time we were there. Morning, Ian. And yes, Ivona says her NLP study was spread over a period too. Yeah, I can't get my head around study for 4 days and then you're signed off as a practitioner. But that's probably a judgment of mine, but that's my thought anyway. Anyway, back to the story. So there was this big party that was happening and my aunt had made my sister's birthday cake. And we were getting ready the day of the party, the table was laid, the food was done, and my aunt brought the cake and put it on the table. And I had never, ever seen a cake like this before. It was like a 3-dimensional cake. You've got to think this was like 1979, where we didn't have the same kind of like access to cake decorating supplies back then as we do now, you know. And I was in Barbados, like all the way, like thousands and thousands of miles away from home. I didn't know what to expect. And when she brought this cake out, it was basically like a Barbie doll standing up on a board with a massively beautiful gown, not too dissimilar to this picture that I drew on here. And the gown was made of cake and decorated beautifully, little sort of piped flowers all the way down the dress in a gorgeous pattern, piping on the body, so the top of the bodice matched the skirt. So she had this beautiful gown on. And I have to say, as a 7-year-old, I was mesmerised. I was absolutely mesmerised. I had never seen anything like this before. And I remember I literally spent the hours before the party just walking around, looking at this cake and looking in absolute amazement. I think my grandma thought I was sort of plotting to eat this cake, but I was walking around and just like, wow, wow, wow. And I remember in that moment saying, when I grow up, I'm going to make cakes like that. And one of the things that came out of the what would I do differently next time exercise was what I learned in that moment. I didn't know what my life was going to be like, how it was going to be shaped, but I knew in that moment that I too wanted to make cakes like that. So when we went through the what would I do differently next time, I realised something, and this kind of percolated over the years. I realised that the what would I do differently next time is a great way to assess what we've done, how we would do something differently, whether the outcome of it was really great or not so great, and how to get different results for next time. But this learning question, I realised over the years, is actually a great question to ask to prepare yourself for life events when you don't actually know that they're going to happen. And I had personal experience of this when in 2010, I unfortunately lost my twins halfway through my pregnancy. Like, I didn't know that was going to happen. I couldn't prepare for it in advance. But it's just some of the principles that I'd learned through NLP actually were really helpful for me. So the reason that this Monday motivation is titled, I Don't Need This Pressure, is because one of the things that became apparent to me was that the pressure that we sometimes feel, we think it comes from the outside, but actually it starts from within us. we have ideas about how our life is, we have ideas about how our life should be, we have ideas about how we think things should happen. And from a coaching perspective, whenever we use the word should, it's not something, I don't believe, to eradicate from your vocabulary. It's a time to notice when you do say should, so that it points to something deeper, i.e. somebody else, not you actually, is thinking that this is the thing for you to do, this is the path for you to take, this is the journey for you. So on this drawing that I prepared on here, I remember looking and thinking, what made me as a 7-year-old hell-bent on, when I grow up, I'm going to make these cakes? Because do you know what? I did. And there was a long learning curve. And here's like insight number one. Insight number one is, we sometimes we want things so badly, so fast, so quickly. And there are times when we can accelerate things. And there are times when actually there's a journey, there's a process, there's a step by step. It isn't always just instant. It's a bit like, thinking, I want to get pregnant, and thinking, well, rather than do the normal thing where I'll get pregnant, wait 9 months and have a baby, I'm just going to mate, for want of a better expression, 9 times and have a baby in a month instead. It's not how it works. So there are times where there are things that we can grab and go out there and push for and attain for, and sometimes there are things that take a process. So one of another insight, I guess, which kind of leads on from that is, sometimes we need to know where we are in that process and which route to take. So as a 7-year-old, I remember the thing that actually made me successful, well, I didn't know that at the time, but the thing that allowed me to be successful in my kind of ambition then of, when I grow up, I'm going to do this thing, was being able to practice. And I'll come on to how in a moment. Allowing myself to make mistakes and learning from those mistakes. There wasn't the motivation of the kudos or the finance or anything else like that. I didn't, as a 7-year-old, think, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make a shed load of money and I'm going to, sell my cakes far and wide or anything else like that. I really recognised the art, the gift in the message. I remember I played with this. I sometimes learnt from other people. The ability to ask questions is priceless. And one of the things that I am seeing now, we're in an age where social media is much more prevalent in our life. Back then at 7, there was no Facebook, there was no internet, for goodness sakes. And nowadays we've got so many resources at our fingertips, We've got so many resources in the palm of our hand from our phone. We've got so many resources on the end of a keyboard. And while we can go out and look for those resources and gain that knowledge and that thirst for knowledge, the ability to ask somebody who's been through that path already, lots of questions, somebody who's done it and failed, lots of questions, somebody that does it successfully, somebody that's looking, to build a bigger vision and a bigger dream, is a really important part of this. So another insight is to have the ability to ask questions. And it's interesting because something that I noticed with the NLP training, and by the way, I later went on to become John Seymour's apprentice as well, which is something that he didn't necessarily do every year. And I learned so much from him, so much from the students that attended, so much from the other people who were assisting, and just so much more about NLP and what a great tool it can be to use for moving forward in life. But those are just some of my things that I learned on the what would I do differently next time question. So why does that help you to keep the pressure off if you don't need the pressure? Because being able to question yourself and ask yourself useful questions before an event, being able to work with somebody who sees who you are outside, so that you can strengthen your core and strengthen your inside, is one of the best gifts, one of the best life skills I've ever had. And it's no coincidence that a lot of my audience that I attract are coaches, are people who do exactly that for other people. And one of the things I see is that sometimes we can get happy behind the comfort of our own keyboard or of our own camera, and forget that actually reaching out sometimes and having the people around us that can really see us, spot us and help us, actually helps what we cultivate and what we learn on the inside. Thus, almost is like a pressure cooker, being able to turn down the heat on the pressure that often we inadvertently generate inside ourselves. Sometimes we generate this pressure because we have such expectations of ourselves without really delving down and finding, what the inner work. And what I also discovered from this particular exercise was, I've put underneath, the only rules are compassion. What do I mean by that? We have so much compassion for other people, but how much compassion do we have for ourselves? For that, I recommend that you start to actively notice some of the sound bites that go on within your own head. The ones that say things like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. That's not for me now. That's for someone else who has this. Or I couldn't do this. It's not my thing. I'm not very good at that. Or, you know what? I'm scared of doing this, and somebody else will be far braver and far better at doing that. So this is not about reflecting on what we feel to be true in that moment. This is about kind of the self-depreciating stuff, which a lot of people, even in our language, self-depreciating humour, why is it funny that we self-depreciate? How is that funny? And for those coaches, kind of a slight segue, something that I often do when I'm working with clients is I look out for that shadow laugh. The laugh that they do about something that's actually not funny, like, oh, I'll never be an author. What's funny about that? That's where I dig deeper. And that's when I get the opportunity, as some of you will know, when I get to work one-to-one with you, I can use those sort of tools and techniques, the shoulds and things like that, not to beat you around the head, because by the time someone's got to me, they've already done that a gazillion times, but to help see the way in for the quickest transformation. At my live events, I often talk about taxis and how these big black cabs in London have these very small wheels, and it's like the small wheels get very big results. And that's what I look for, not just in my clients, in myself, in the organisations that I work with, in the people that I'm very blessed to be able to help, and in my life of my own personal development. So the only rules are compassion. Have compassion for yourself. The same sort of compassion, and even more for yourself, that you have for other people. Have clarity. Clarity in knowing exactly what you want. This is still the biggest reason why when people have come to me, this is not to say that they are unclear, but the path that they're taking is unclear, which is what makes it harder for us to hit our goals. It's what makes it harder for us to navigate where we want to go. And sometimes that clarity can be clouded because we'll tell ourselves, yeah, but in my circumstances and with my life, this is not going to be possible. Okay, so there's so much more I can say on both the compassion and the clarity piece. I won't. And I just want to acknowledge some of the comments that I'm seeing here. So Ivona is saying this is a very relevant message this morning. Thank you, Jenny. You're welcome, Ivona. Teresa is saying self-compassion is key. Absolutely. That's, I know, an integral part of your work, Teresa. And she also says perception is reality. Okay, so Teresa, I would invite you to expand a bit more on that, because perception is reality makes sense to me because it is a soundbite that I hear in the coaching industry. But imagine that someone's just dropped onto the planet. Expand a bit more about what that actually means, so that anyone watching this now or even on the replay can really get a sense of, if perception is reality, what does that mean? I know that we know what those words mean, but just in a kind of a one-liner that somebody can really appreciate and understand, because I think that comment with that deeper piece could be really helpful. So what does that mean? And then finally, the only rules after compassion and after clarity are playfulness. As a 7-year-old, I didn't say, right, first thing is I need to go on a course. So I'm knocking my birthday cards over in the background. I didn't say I need to go on a course so that I can really nail how to create, sugarcraft delights, and how to ice properly, and how to make the perfect cake, and how to get the perfect texture. I just started to play, and I mentioned before that I was able to practice first and learn from my mistakes. True story. I was so fascinated by the fact that this cake was sculpted and modelled that on a Saturday, when my mum used to go out and do the shopping and take me and my sister with her, she would say, pick whichever sweets you wanted. And I started to pick these chunks of fudge, not only because I really loved the way that fudge tasted, but because I realised that if I kept moulding it and squeezing it, it would become pliable, almost like clay. And morning, Tasha. I was able to make like little cats. So I'd have a go at making animals and cats. And each time I made them, they would get more and more like the thing they were supposed to look like. They probably looked like blobs to start off with. But it didn't matter. I was able to practice first. I was able to make mistakes. I allowed myself to make mistakes. And if it went wrong, squash it down again, start again. And then I'd get to eat the fudge. My inner 7-year-old came out then. Did you see that? But then I got to eat the fudge. And this is something that we sometimes we can take ourselves so seriously and strive for something so hard that we can forget, actually, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to have fun with. So I invite you to have a look at what you would either do differently next time, but most importantly, where right now in your life do you have a pressure that you've either been trying to ignore or needs addressing? Where have you been putting yourself under this pressure? Is it for maybe it's in your relationships, as I know Ivona is a relationship coach. Is it in your relationships, like personal relationships? Is it professional relationships? Is it maybe within your business? Is it maybe within the way that you manage your finances or money for yourself or for your family or even for your business or company? I remember as a national training manager and both a learning and development professional, I used to have to look after a budget just for a certain part of the business of over $250,000. I had to allocate that. And sometimes there was a pressure, if not by myself, from someone else, that I should spend it in a certain way. So there is, these different areas of our lives. It could be our goals. It could be our health and well-being. It could be any of these areas. Where do you feel the pressure? And take a few moments. Sometimes it's nice to be able to sit down with a journal, pen and paper, and either write down sort of a stream of consciousness, what's going through your mind of it, or sometimes it might be your thought process and then the bullet points as that. So what is that, what is that thing for you? And yes, there might be a few things, but what's the small wheels, the big cab? What's the smallest thing that makes the biggest difference? So I'm going to go back and read Teresa's comments. So for those of you on live, and thank you for posting that, Teresa. I think it's really helpful. I like to break things down. I really like to break things down. I never want to leave any room for kind of confusion or what does that mean? So I'll come back and read that. And the thing that I do want to say is that luckily for you guys, I had 5 days of birthday celebrations. So up until I think it will work at midday. If you want to experience that close-up and personal coaching or mentoring element on the 17th of July, I am having a live event in London. It's the Ultimate Visibility Bootcamp, best suited for those of you who have got your own business or are trying to start your own business. And you've even got people that are attending who have been in business for a long time. So the thing that I'm looking forward to is a small, intimate event where you get to find out a bit more about what goes on inside, what gets shared outside for your own ultimate visibility. It's called a boot camp because on that day there will be a lot of doing, but I've purposely kept the numbers small on this particular event because I want to roll my sleeves up and really dive in. And the place that I'm going to start, people often say, how do I get more visible? What can I do? How can I be seen? The nucleus and the place to start, the small wheels that drives that big cab, is usually in our messaging. And regardless of how long we've been out in business, one of the things that I've seen over my own 9 years of being in business is our messaging can always get tighter. What if you serve a couple of different markets? How do you keep a message that seems consistent? And from that point, that's actually what gives us the impetus and the confidence and the consistency to be putting ourselves out there. Whether you do that on video, whether you do that on a stage from speaking, which I of course do both of those, or whether you do that on online and offline, which of course I do all of them. So I'm able to mentor you through that so that you can come out of that day with a plan, with a firm action plan that actually suits who you are, who your life is, and who your business is. And one of the things that I see a lot is, especially those of us that have had a professional background, and I did this too, we bring it into our business, we bring it into our company, which we want to start, and we go for perfection. We go for such a level. It's a reason why after 3 years I could have moved to a studio, I could pre-record these and have these in a beautiful way. But quite often what I see professionals doing is shooting for perfection, shooting for the perfect videos to send out. Even how they come across, I think, where did the person go? Imagine that every Monday I came on and I said, welcome to Monday Motivation. After a while, you'd be thinking, that's great, but where's Jenny? This is the reason why so many professionals that I see have a disconnect from their audience. The stuff's good, the stuff really works, but then when it comes to putting the work out there, what then tends to happen, people that are having a conversation about working with me will often say, I've been consistent, or, I can't keep consistent because, and it's normally to do with the messaging piece and who they really are deep down. Or they'll say, oh, I want to get out there, I want to do this thing, I want to, but no one's really picking up what I'm putting down. Or I do video regularly, but no one really buys from me from it. This is like pivotal. And I see so many people out there doing visibility because they think it's about jump and the net will appear. They think it's about feel the fear and do it anyway. And I know that it can be really frustrating when that doesn't work for them, because ultimately we're putting our stuff out there in the world. We're making a difference. And putting yourself out there in the world, making a difference is really great and really rewarding. The thing that it kind of hurts us in our hip pocket, if you like, is if we've got families to provide for, if you've got bills to pay, and there's nothing that can take the passion out of your business as quickly as having a business where you serve and you show up and not being rewarded for it. This then chips away at what we think of our value, and then normally has a spiral effect, which goes into a negative spiral more than a positive spiral. So I'm going to be sharing all sorts of things with you like that. I'm going to be sharing how do you take something that you do when it's in fact, a majority of people that are coming have businesses that don't help other people grow their business. They've got businesses that rely on somebody's health and well-being, somebody's state of mind, somebody's spiritual beliefs. They've got all sorts of different things like this, and I want to show you why getting that messaging is really the key to that, and how I've done both in not only the business to consumer piece, but also the business to business, how I've gone in and got corporate contracts and won a really quite lucrative and rewarding contract with a global organisation. So I want to be able to share those sorts of steps if that's how and where you want to take your work. If you've got small children at home, you might want to be out there and be global without having to travel around the planet like every few days. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited about it. And the thing is, the ticket price will go up at 12 to 129, and by the end of this week it'll go up to £149. And trust me, it's totally worth it. The return on investment, I'm sure, will be a lot higher than anything you invest to be in the room. So it's going to be on a Wednesday. Yes, it's going to be on a school day. But the details, if you go to the top of this page, click on the link, you'll see the Ultimate Boot Camp. You'll see all the details on there. And if, as some of you have already told me, you can't make it, that's fine. RSPC, can't go. And then share it with a friend, either in a private message or in a place that's appropriate where your friends might see it. So hopefully you have taken some nuggets from the stuff that I've shared today, even if it's a description of things, even if it's my own story, because after that 7-year-old went on to say, I'm going to do this one day when I grow up. I did. But first, let's go back to Teresa's comment. Perception is reality is about what we believe to be true. So we observe, witness and experience so much in life that forms our belief and what we deem to be true. However, sometimes when we view things from a different perspective, our reality can change. And absolutely. So for those of you that are maybe new to personal development or thinking, gosh, what's that about? Think about this. As children, we grow up and we observe the things around us. We observe sometimes and this is just one example, we might observe how people behave around us. So if, for example, you grew up living in a cave, after the age of 7, this dips a little bit into transactional analysis, but after the age of 7, we've normally formed our own opinions about how we think things should work or how they should be. So can you imagine that I've grown up and lived in a cave and then I later on in life am told you can live in this house, it's got everything you need in it, or you can live in a cave. My perception about what I believe to be true, what I want for my life, will be based on that experience. And it could be that, no, caves are the only places to live in, or it could be, you know what, I spent the first years of my life in a cave, never living there again. Everyone that lives in a cave is bad or whatever. So we generally collect different viewpoints as we go through life. So if we witness and experience something, we see things and we take that into our emotions. But one of the things I find when I'm coaching clients is it's almost like, because we've got so adept at doing that, we bury it and we don't actually realise that we have created our own experience from those things. We think that, no, it's because somebody's told me this or somebody's treated me this way. So really love that insight. So thank you, Teresa. Wayne Dyer says, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. One of my favourites. And last week, I'm sure you all saw that I dedicated my Monday motivation to Wayne Dyer's teachings. Really wise man. So Tasha's going and she's going to take this call and she's going to listen back. Cool. Ivona says, I love the sound of your boot camp. I'm really excited about it. You know, in the past six events that I've held over the past few years, I've really wanted to go for like the bigger numbers so that everyone can get access to it. And what I'm realising is sometimes that doesn't serve the people in the way that it wants to, and sometimes it does. This is very different. This is a chance basically that so many people say, I'd love to work with you privately, and some of my sounding board clients pay up to and in excess of £3,000 a year to work with me, which doesn't sound like a lot to some, and it sounds like a huge amount to others. I wanted people to experience what it's like to work with me very deeply, very closely, and have me put my eyes on where they want to go and who their business is and who they are, so that we can put together their visibility plan based on who they are, what they love and what they share. So thank you so much for joining me. Do remember to share this one. I know it's been a longer one, but it's one that you can go back to in pieces. I'm reliably informed that Facebook may just show you 5 minutes of this at some point, so to give you a sneak preview. So I know that they're always changing how they do things, but I would really strongly encourage you, and I sometimes do this myself, is to watch back. I learn from myself, if that makes any sense at all, and people do get value from these. So thank you for those of you who have joined me live, and thank you for those of you who are watching on the replay. And if you would like to continue the conversation and want to do it in a less public place, then go over to the Visibility Vibes tribe. If you would like my help and for whatever reason you can't make the bootcamp, but you'd like to work personally with me to go through this ultimate visibility piece, there will be ways in which you can do that as well. Just send me a message to this page and I will send you details of how you can apply to do that. Thank you so much for watching. Lots of love to you. End of birthday celebrations, and it's the beginning of July, so Ian's calendar has got a new page, which really reflects how the weather's been this weekend, I think. Lots of love to you all. Bye for now.